The Hog's Die is brought to you by TicketClub.com, your one-stop shop for live events nationwide. Whether you're looking for game, theater, or live performance tickets, don't sweat it. TicketClub.com has you covered. So make sure you're going there for all your live entertainment needs, and make sure you're clicking over to them from the banner at the top of thehogsdie.com.
Welcome back to the Hog's Die. Another week, another loss. The Redskins fall to 0-2 on the season with the 31-21 loss to the Cowboys. For those of us keeping track, that's 2 straight divisional losses to get the year started, and we are here to deconstruct it so you don't have to. My name's Sean Conti. Steve Thomas, Alex Zeese, and Jamal Forrest are here today, and how are you guys holding up after this one?
I mean, it was expected. You know, we all called a loss. We all thought it was going to be ugly to one extent or another. It's not. It feels bad right now because we're recording this 10 minutes after the game ended. It feels bad, but this is also. It feels like this is what was supposed to happen.
Yeah.
Like what we knew was going to happen, rather.
Yeah, but even though I knew it, Steve, and even though I expected it, it stings hard because it's the Cowboys, and those losses always hurt more than. If we lost to Tampa Bay or some other team.
Yeah, I mean, I hear you. Somebody on Twitter asked if during the game, if there really still is a Redskins-Cowboys rivalry. And being down here in Texas, I can tell you that Cowboy fans, at least, don't really think of it as a rivalry anymore.
Right.
We do.
Right.
But they really don't. And granted, Cowboy fans are mostly arrogant and stupid, and they're definitely bandwagoners. They're not very good fans, but still, they just don't view us as a rivalry
They don't care
anymore because we've been so bad for so long.
Yeah.
Right.
I kind of said the same thing from a different perspective. I forgot who I was talking to. It was yesterday, but just like this rivalry is kind of important to one side now because the other side has been completely mediocre and inconsistent for a long period of time. Doesn't really make a difference. I mean, as you can see today, you saw what they did. They walked in here like it was nothing and put up 400 plus yards on us. And Dak only had 4 incompletions.
Yeah.
So it's
It's very frustrating.
But it is what it is.
As the announcer said, there were times there was just no resistance at all. So we'll get into all of that. There were definitely some bright spots. So, Steve, do you want to hit us with stats up front or something?
Sure.
Or let's do
Yeah,
that
absolutely.
first.
No. Okay. On the day, Case Keenum was 26 of 37 for 221 yards, 2 touchdowns, quarterback rating 103.5. Adrian Peterson was the leading rusher, 10 carries, 25 yards, 2.5 yards per attempt. As a team, the Redskins were 17 for 47 yards for 2.8 yards per attempt, and that includes Steven Sims with 3 for 16 on. He had a jet sweep and another handoff in there. Terry McLaurin was 5 receptions, 62 yards. He was the leading receiver, 1 touchdown. Long of 27, 9 targets. A couple of those misses weren't his fault. None of those misses were really his fault. Chris Thompson was next, 5 for 48. Trey Quinn, 4 for 36. Vernon Davis, 3 for 29. Paul Richardson, 3 for 16, 1 touchdown. Jeremy Sprinkle, 1 for 11. Wendell Smallwood, 2 for 9. Adrian Peterson, 2 for 7. Steven Sims, 1 for 3. Dallas on offense, like Jamal mentioned, looked very good. Dak Prescott, 26 for 30, 269 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception, quarterback rating 123.5. And let me tell you, but for that interception, he might have had another perfect quarterback rating again this week.
Great.
Ezekiel Elliott, 23 carries, 111 yards, 4.8 yards per attempt. Dak Prescott outrushed the entire Redskins offense all by himself. He was 5 carries, 69 yards. So, yeah,
sounds right.
Yeah, think about that. Devin Smith, three receptions, 74 yards. He was the 74 yards. He was the leading receiver. Had the 1 long touchdown pass, 51 yards. We'll get to that. The immortal Jason Witten, 4 for 25, 1 touchdown. That's just mind-boggling. And we'll knock out the defensive stats here, too. Landon Collins was the leading tackler on the day. 12 tackles, 9 solo. Monte Nicholson, 9 tackles, 7 solo. John Bostic, 7 tackles. It goes down from there. The 1 sack was Ryan Kerrigan, who finally got on the board.
Hey.
And he also had another quarterback hit after that. And that was defense, folks. Monte Nicholson with 1 interception.
Yeah, it was a great play, though. Let's start maybe with Redskins offense this week because defense was kind of an S show, as we all know. So we can finish up with that. Redskins offense, we saw Peterson for the first time. We definitely saw continued good performances from McLaurin. Why don't we start with what went right on offense today? I mean, what did you guys see that was going well? Jamal
I mean,
go ahead.
well, Terry McLaurin.
I was actually yarning, unfortunately.
Terry McLaurin seems to be legit. He seems to be a legit number one receiver. I think that's what went right. You know, he's
already beating
NFL,
Josh Doxson's career output at this point.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's true, but he just seems to be a legit NFL number one receiver. He's got the speed. You know, he showed that he can run routes today. He's not just a deep ball. You know, run fly patterns all the time. You know, because the Cowboy corner that was covering him, you know, had his speed. You know, basically could match McLaurin's speed. But McLaurin, you know, he really picked up his game in the second half, especially. So that went right to me. Other than that, nothing else went right. I thought Adrian Peterson did what he could in the face of absolute garbage of a game by the Redskins offensive line.
Yeah.
You know, other than Case Keenum was okay. You know, he had some misreads. He had some bad throws. He wasn't great. He's about what you'd expect out of Case Keenum. And other than that, I don't know what to say.
I want fans to think back to what they saw when Kirk was our quarterback a couple of years ago. And it's really the same kind of offense. You can't expect this line to block very well for the run. And on the pass, they're going to dink and dunk their way. A lot of passes at Chris Thompson. I'm happy with McLaurin. I mean, he's been pretty good.
Yeah, absolutely.
But we don't have anybody who's going to get the ball deep accurately, and that's going to kill us.
Yeah. I agree. Speaking of Thompson, by the way, you just brought up Thompson trying to dink and dunk up the field. I thought they were trying to get him killed early in this game. I mean, things were just getting blown up in the backfield. They were trying to shoot it off to him on the sidelines, and it just wasn't working. That's just
Your
the
classic need 15, get 14 type plays.
Yeah, exactly. You know, it just seemed like, you know, the dink and dunk wasn't working. Everything was getting blown up before it had a chance to develop. Not a good game on offense.
Well, here's one thing that I would like to mention that since we were talking about positives real quickly, it's not much, but at the same time, you got to realize for us, Redskins fans in general, if you haven't noticed, you're seeing a lot of Terry McLaurin, you're seeing a lot of Paul Richardson, you're seeing a lot of Kelvin Harmon, you're seeing a lot of Trey Quinn, and then Jeremy Sprinkle's getting his time with Jordan Reed out. The whole point of me mentioning these players is there's no politics behind who they're putting on the field. So it doesn't matter what round you were drafted in. They're making sure that you get time. They're trying to use you as best as they can. They even had Steven Sims in there.
Yeah, that's a great point.
They used him more as a running weapon. But at the same time, you see that there's no politics involved. The coaches, for what it's worth, they're making sure that they're getting the best players on the field for whatever it is that they're trying to run. And right now, they trust the younger guys way more than anyone expected. But it's also a good thing, too, because moving forward, you know there's some pieces to work there with. It is 0-2, and that's not a good start, especially for you to be 0-2 in the division. However, moving forward, you have something to look forward to on the offense.
Yeah, you know what? Can I just say, too, Trey Quinn, my goodness, this guy. 4 receptions, 36 yards, not blowing the stat sheet up or anything, but
yeah, I mean,
awesome
scare anybody.
Output today.
You know,
I mean, especially on that fourth down conversion to keep that drive alive in the first half, I guess it was.
Yeah, I mean,
he's been doing some good
things.
things.
I mean, he's a good
Definitely
receiver.
Another positive.
I mean, he's never going to be, Jarvis Landry.
He might also be getting lost in the attention.
I mean, I'm glad he's on the
too.
team. He's outperforming his draft status. He was Mr. Irrelevant, and, I mean, I'm glad he's part of the team. But the only player who really scares anybody on this offense is McLaurin. And AP at this point is solid, but he just can't do anything. The way the old offensive line is playing, he just has no room to do anything. So it's really the Terry McLaurin show in terms of things opposing defenses have to worry about, it seems to me. He didn't have any choice.
Right.
Yeah.
If you look at how AP performs, it's a lot of bobbing and weaving behind the line of scrimmage to get 3 yards. Whereas a decent line, he'd be doing that a couple yards upfield. He'd probably get 5 to 6 yards on those plays. And we just don't have that kind of line. That's the issue.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and that
I
is a
do.
big issue.
I've got 7 total
Another thing not
penalties.
helping that whole
3 of those
situation
were
is the
offensive holding
penalties, I
penalties.
think. So
2
we had
more were
3
defensive
holding penalties
penalties.
last week on the offense.
There-
We had 3 more in the
at the end of
first
the day,
half,
by my
I think,
count,
this
Dallas
week.
actually had more
What was the
penalties
total?
than
Do you have that
Redskins.
number,
I counted
Steve?
8
How many penalties?
on them. But it looked to me
Okay.
like the refs missed multiple holding calls on Dallas that just went uncalled. Yeah. Yeah, and I don't think there's a conspiracy theory against the Redskins. I just think it's poor officiating, more or less. But
on the big
Kerrigan.
run by Dak Prescott, they missed
Yeah,
like 2. It was insane. how
yeah,
much they
so
missed
anyway,
there.
that's penalties. I mean, the holding calls are just a joke at this point. I just don't understand how
Well,
get
it's-
this
it's
fixed.
a
I really
hockey
don't.
league
I mean, Bill
officiating
Callahan,
this,
supposedly
so-
the
Yeah, we
best
talked
offensive
about
line
it. We know
coach
how
in the
that
game. None of us here are offensive line
Yeah, we
experts at
definitely
all.
do.
I just don't understand how you can have so many holding calls. I mean, they have talent.
Yeah.
Sheriff got 2 all by himself today. And it's usually Morgan Moses that gets these. Morgan didn't have any, but now we have Scherf. So it's the offensive line has just been in crisis for 2 weeks by the nature of their play, in my
Yeah,
opinion.
I don't either.
Yeah, but they've been better, at times.
Mm-hmm. Been in crisis for 3 years.
Yeah.
But you know what's even crazier? Listen to this. Most of the problems are coming on the right side of the ball. Where the players that's been here the longest are having the most issues. I've never understood that. Like, you would have expected most of the problems to come on the left side of the line, with an inexperienced guard and tackle who's 37, but it takes some time. He needs some time to get acclimated back
I
to the
thought he was
game.
137.
However,
I
it's
didn't know he was only 37.
yeah, basically old as hell. But he's like, the right side is having the most issues, and
They are playing
I
well,
do not understand it. Like, what
sometimes
could
it's as simple as that.
Like you said, we're not both
I don't know what to
offensive
say
line
about it.
gurus, but
I
I
mean,
would really like
they
to know
just aren't
how
playing
is
well.
this
What can you say?
occurring so often.
I
and so
mean,
frequently
look,
on that side.
I'd never expect. I don't think any of us expected this offense to be explosive, or even to be very good. This year there were a ton of question marks. The quarterback was a question mark. The running game was a question mark. I mean, we hadn't seen Darius Geis, play at all. We love him, nice guy, all of that, but we hadn't seen him play. The receivers were a huge question mark. They basically had no experience with the exception of Paul Richardson, and all that's kind of proven true. They're inconsistent, But really, the big disappointment, like Jamal, if you can pinpoint one biggest disappointment, I think Jamal's right. The right side of the offensive line, those guys are supposed to be the stalwarts because they've been there the longest time, and they just haven't looked good for 2 weeks. Both of them have been bad.
No, I think the offense has performed as I kind of expected. We're putting up, 21 this week, 27 last week. Those are around the numbers you would have hoped for with all the questions we had. But
And with those numbers, you would have thought we'd be
right,
2-0.
if you told
Like,
me
knowing
we put up
coming
those
into
numbers,
the season.
Exactly right, Jamal.
Yeah, on average, I think we talked about this in a previous episode. On average, you just need like 22 points to win if your defense can hold out a little bit. This defense, surprisingly, what was seen as a strength on paper is not holding out at all. So maybe that's a good segue then to flop on over to the other side of the ball.
Because that's not the way
One
Jay
thing on
rolls.
offense I want to bring up
Oh.
real quick.
By all means, let's hear it.
All right, we were down 31-14.
That's not the way Jay rolls. And
At one point, why wasn't Haskins in there at that point?
I mean,
that's the ideal time to give
I
a
hear
rookie
you.
some
I
play
just
time.
gonna maybe
That is perfect rookie play time.
no. I just said maybe later in this year if this keeps
No,
happening
but
and
that's
they're
the way you should roll.
like 2-10 or something. Yeah, sure.
what
He's going
you
to do it.
should do.
I don't disagree. I'm not disagreeing with you, Alex. It would have been good to get him some play experience, but I just don't think that's Jay Gruden.
So I'll give you. Go ahead. Yeah, so I was gonna say, that's a legitimate question to ask, knowing who the backup quarterback is. I think, and I was just gonna piggyback on what you were saying, Steve. Basically, it's just the strength that you're technically you're not out of the game yet, and when you're not out of the game yet, and the quarterback wasn't necessarily playing bad, there's no reason to be that trigger happy to bench Keenum. It's not necessarily his fault that the defense gave up 4 straight scoring. No. I'm just saying the mindset. I know, like I'm saying, I acknowledge that that's a good question to have. It's just off the strength that Jay Gruden wouldn't operate that way because of things like he wouldn't see it that way.
Yeah,
He'll see it as the fact that he
I think
knows
you're right.
His offense is doing what
they
the best
weren't ever
could,
really out of the
but
game until
it's
the
only
bitter
limited.
end.
It's very
Once they got
limited given the fact that the defense
third
cannot get a stop.
touchdown, they
That's
were
all I'm
kind of
saying.
in
So
it
you
briefly,
asked
and
the
at
question.
that point, you're not going to bench your starting quarterback. They weren't really out of it until the last series.
Sure.
You know.
It's just, to me, you need to find
one
places
other
for
thing
a
I'd like to
kid
point
like that
out
to
before we
play,
flip
and
over, Steven Sims.
the odds
Now,
against
what
you
we
winning
saw out
that
of Sims
game
today, he had the
going
jet
into the
sweeps.
fourth were infinitesimal, so.
Now, this is the type of thing that he did in college. Okay, this is how Kansas used him. Kansas used him
love
exactly
those,
like
by the
this,
way.
and so the kid
How
is a
often do we see
playmaker.
those on this
and I
team?
think we're going to see more of that. And obviously, clearly, Redskins watch his college film, and they know this. They know that that's how he plays, and they know he's explosive in that manner. So I do think that is a new wrinkle that we could see from him, kind of on a long-term basis going forward.
Right. I dig it. All in. If we're running a triple option with Steve Sims doing reverse sweeps and shit like that, love it. That's fun.
Yeah, nice.
I agree. I'm sorry for the late response. I do agree though. Like Steven Sims has that. He has that type of, I guess, game where you can get him in open space. He just has to calm down because he had an opportunity to score a touchdown on that second end around or handoff. Where he tripped going into, I think, the tight end. I can't remember who it was, but he has to calm down. Like, I understand he's excited, but if you just read that guy and have a way where you manipulate the defensive back and have him go inside and then use your blocker to have him seal the edge for you, you know what I'm saying? That's a walk-in touchdown. But just calm down a little bit.
Nice. Well said. Okay, moved into the other side of the ball. Interesting. Kind of a weird game again. Started okay this week. Ended not so much okay. I mean, early in the game, we forced it a punt on their first drive, got an interception from them after that, forced them to punt again, and then essentially at that point they scored on every drive they had from there on out to the rest of the game. But just a lot of sloppiness. I saw a lot of really poor arm tackle attempts.
I think the defensive front seven has been
it
overrated
just
by
wasn't.
this fan
It was
base.
not a tightly played game.
I've
They
never
did not
really
play
bought
up to
into
their
the idea that
competition.
this is an elite defensive
What can you
front
really
seven.
say? I mean, it was an S
this is
show
the
by
third
end.
time I've seen this defensive line get dominated by a decent team. They got dominated by the Falcons in the preseason when the starters matched up with the starters. The Eagles wore them down and dominated them for about 3 quarters, roughly, last week. And really most of the game they got dominated by Dallas, with the exception of the first couple drives. So I refuse, like I did last week, I refuse to think that Jonathan Allen, as good as he is responsible for all of this. Because for one thing, Allen played against the Falcons. But I just think, in spite of how good it looks on paper, the results that they've shown us has not shown me that this is anywhere near as good as what the fans have thought we all had.
I don't disagree with you, but at the same time, I think that the core issue comes down to a lack of good depth behind our 2 starters.
I couldn't disagree
right
with you
now,
more.
Normally 3
I mean,
starters,
look,
but
the starters haven't played well.
they
haven't
think
played
that
well.
You're putting the same 2 or 3 guys out for the entire game. It's no wonder they're getting exhausted by the second half.
So what? They played in the first quarter, so what? This is a 4-quarter game.
No, they play okay in the first
I think that's
quarter
an
and a
excuse.
half.
I think that's
right?
an excuse, man.
The
I just don't
first
think
game,
that this
they played
defensive
well
line is what we
in
thought.
that first quarter and a half.
I could be wrong. That's what I think.
They need to rest for a while, and then they need to come back in, and they don't have anyone to help them rest.
Well, here's one thing. Here's one thing, because it was on my mind during the game as well. Because like you said, we talked about this last week. I don't know what the numbers are with J.J. Watt out of the game for the Texans. But my assumption is when you have, and I'm not comparing Jonathan Allen to J.J. Watt. What I'm saying is when your best player on the defensive line, or even in one aspect of the game, when your best player is out there who makes other players drastically better, that sometimes plays a factor. With that being said, Jonathan Allen is the better defensive line out of everybody that we have. The impact that he makes for this team and for this defense is yet to be determined because he hasn't played 2 full games. He missed one game completely, and he missed a half with the Eagles. So what I'm saying is it may possibly be overrated completely. It may possibly be that case. But at the same time, we don't know how they truly play. Even though we kind of seen it last year, which is unfortunate, but it was also a whole different defense. But we don't know how they're going to play this year until.
Here's one other thing, though.
But that's not
on
that's
the deep touchdown to Devin Smith. I was going back and forth with Mark Bullock, our buddy Mark Bullock, trying to figure out exactly what happened. And Will Blackman, former Redskins defensive back, saw this conversation, chimed in, and he explained what Mark Bullock and I were struggling with. Blackman knew, obviously, instantaneously, because he's a pro. It's on the internet. So what Dallas had on that play, a shallow crosser and a crosser, and then they had Smith on a post, okay? And so we had Monte Nicholson, free safety. Josh Norman was on Smith, and then they had the corner on the other side and Landon Collins. And so what happened here is that Monte Nicholson came up from his free safety position to take the high crosser, leaving Josh Norman alone on the post. Now, my initial thought on it was that Nicholson probably should have stayed deep because as a safety, you never, ever give up the deep ball. But what Blackman said was that, no, Nicholson did the right thing in coming up to take the high crosser, and Josh Norman just wasn't on top of the route. And the other thing he pointed out that both Mark and I missed totally was that the other corner on the backside had a completely empty zone. He was supposed to rotate all the way over on top and help out on the route. And so that's what happened.
Norman's route,
it looked to me.
you talking about DRC?
Yeah, on the other side, right.
I said the same thing. I said there was no way Josh Norman should be by himself. So if you had Nicholson rolling on the underneath route and DRC had nobody in his area,
yep.
you sprint downfield to the deepest man. And I thought it was going to be impossible for. And like mentally, I was like, it may be asking too much of DRC, but clearly
and
not.
he had an
That's
April,
his
he called it
responsibility.
Yankee check. That's what Will Blackman called that play, Yankee check. So that was Will Blackman's position on it. Now, it looked to me like there's some bad communication there, or at least Josh Norman, maybe it wasn't communication, maybe he just misread it, because the TV announcer pointed out that he kind of hesitated halfway through that route, expecting the safety to be there, which clearly he shouldn't have been there. So bad all around. Norman didn't provide good coverage. Looks like DRC blew it, at least according to Will Blackman. Just bad effort all around.
Now, and I'm not going to question Blackman because we've talked to Blackman on our show in the past. I trust him. He's a smart dude. The thing that blows my mind on this is what, the second or third time that we've seen Norman on a deep ball where he kind of just can't cover one-on-one deep anymore. Like, for a $20 million corner, he is not doing what you need a $20 million corner to do.
He's never been that guy, though.
And it's concerning.
That guy, really.
Mm-hmm.
He's just not. That's why Odell Beckham would get the best of him, because Beckham's just faster. He's not.
Mm-hmm.
He's never has been a speed corner.
No.
So yeah, I mean, he's had a rough couple weeks. I thought one of those last week wasn't really on him, but certainly he bears responsibility, at least some responsibility. Probably the primary responsibility for the touchdown today, according to Will Blackman. Who knows
for that one? And he had that blown one today too. That probably could have also been a touchdown if it had been thrown a little better.
Yeah.
So I worry about the whole Josh Norman
that having
situation.
been said,
and I've worried about that for years.
I mean, look, the other starter was out. The slot guy was out.
Yeah.
Jimmy Moreland's a rookie. I mean, we all love him, but I mean, it would not go well if he had to start covering number one receivers. It just wouldn't. He's not ready. Yeah.
He shouldn't even be. That should be malpractice.
But here's the thing: if he fails,
unless there's like 1,000 injuries,
$50,000 a game versus Josh Norman, who gets paid $1.5 million a game.
Nobody cares about that.
I can live with that.
I mean, well, you do. But
I care about
coaches
that.
Don't. Okay, they just want people to play well, and nobody cares about who's making what. The fact of the matter is, Jimmy Moreland would be awful, at that. He's filling his role nicely, but he's just not ready for all that, I don't think. So, I mean, the secondary's just banged up again. I just can't believe it. I can't. I thought we were going to see the Aaron Colvin era there for a while because DRC went out with an ankle injury in the first half. They had to put the Shazer Everett in a corner, for God's sakes. I mean, I just don't know what to say about
Jesus.
that. But anyway, so there you go. That was Will Blackman's view on that play. Certainly, we trust him.
By the way, Everett did okay, pressed into whatever he was pressed into. So I want to give him credit there.
Because DRC came back in. And by the way, I mean, the idea that we're happy that Dominic Rogers-Cromartie is out there starting says something, okay? They signed him, toward the end of the offseason, and he's old, and, he retired halfway through last season for the Raiders. I mean, it's not like he's the future, so that's not, I'm more concerned about Quentin Dunbar, frankly. No.
Can't stay healthy anymore.
It's the same old story, as it always has been.
I'm about to say, thank you, Sean. I was about to say that. It's the same old story. There's nothing we can really say. The corners, like Fabian Moreau. You know what? I forgot if it was us or if I heard this on the radio. But you're dealing with Fabian Moreau, Jordan Reed, who else were we talking about? Darius Geis. And I'll just leave with those three because I can't remember the rest of the names. But you're dealing with these three players, and maybe Morgan Moses, but these guys are coming out of college. We're dealing with injuries, and we choose to rely on these guys for a heavy part of our game planning. And just in general, I'm saying this to say, like, you have these cornerbacks, you have these guys at other positions on the offensive side of the field, and you can't really count on them because they stay hurt. Like, these are guys that we knew that was hurt coming out, and you're hoping that you can change things as become a fresh professional, and that's not fair to them. But it's also not very smart by your end as well to hope that these guys are just going to somehow be 100% healthy. Like, that's just taking a big risk. But with that being said, you got Fabian Rose out, Quentin Dunbar, who's been hurt the last 2 years. You're kind of you're in trouble, but this kind of mess was made on your own.
There's no doubt about it. I mean, I think Redskins should be relying on a guy like Jordan Reed, for example. We love Jordan Reed. He truly is a mismatch. When he's out there.
No, you should be planning on him being your number 2, and when he's in, it's a bonus, and then have a number 3 behind him.
I just think they need to trade him. But the problem is
that'd be my mentality about a guy like that.
To not be on the field all the time. I always thought, for months now, I thought they should have traded him. Get what you can and move on. But, I mean, that was never going to happen.
Sure.
It was just me babbling. But, as a general rule, you're right, Jamal. I mean, they are drafting all these guys with injury histories. And shockingly enough, they get injured.
Right. We're not good at health
I don't know
ourselves.
if I'm really willing to blame the medical staff.
That's the other part.
They seem to be the convenient whipping boy right now. Oh, it's the medical staff's fault. But look, I mean, it's not the medical staff's problem that Jonathan Allen's leg got caught and at a funny angle. It's not the medical staff's problem that Alex Smith shattered his leg into a million pieces. It's not the medical staff's fault that Darius Geis tore his meniscus. I just don't. I have a hard time believing what Trent Williams is saying.
I'm not a believer in luck. I don't think luck exists. I think there's a reason for everything. You just got to dig deep to find it. And if you don't want to dig deep and find it, you shouldn't be in charge of this team. So,
I kind of do believe in luck. I'm not gonna lie to you. I only say that in this regard because there are teams who they deal with injuries, but they don't deal with them to the level of others, and they also get lucky. These are also guys who get lucky in the postseason as well because their key players are still healthy. Sometimes you deal with players, and I'm not specifically talking about the Redskins when I'm talking about players or teams who have their key guys injured, because there are other teams throughout this league who has that done. It's just in the sense that when that happens to a team, it's just I just say like it's bad luck in that sense. Sometimes you do have to get lucky throughout the season, and breaks got to go your way during games by itself, not just the injury factor. So. Just in that regard, I do.
Yeah, and I will agree too. But I think I'm with Alex on this one. There's a lot of smoke here for you to tell me there's no fire with the medical staff or with conditioning coaches or whatever the case may be. There's a lot of smoke in the form of injured players.
The medical staff
for there to not
Smith,
be some sort of issue,
Geis,
at least in my opinion.
Allen, Reed and all his concussions. I mean, I'd not.
Not even necessarily the medical staff. I honestly would be more curious about what the strength and conditioning coaches are doing. I mean, we had a lot of lower leg injury problems last year. Not just the breaks, but we have constant tears and strains and hyperextensions, it seems. I don't know. Something seems to be...
On this. I just think they've had horrible luck.
Folks' bodies just aren't holding up like other teams.
Well, and they're drafting guys that are injury prone.
Well, they definitely have.
I don't know if
where's the line.
Darius Geis injury prone, but a lot of these guys.
I think that's part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe it was a flag. Maybe
he had an injury in college that should have been a flag,
but they're just
or could have been a flag.
I have a question for you guys. I've been thinking about this. Where, I'm wondering where the Redskins rank in sort of the dregs of the NFL ranking, just generally speaking, because we've got a few franchises that are just elite, right, and have been for years. Obviously, the Patriots, the Saints, there's probably two or three other. Green Bay has been up there, but the real dregs of the NFL. Are we really down there with the true dregs, or are we just kind of being woe is me because we're Redskins fans? I know what I think. I don't want to know what you think.
You knew the answer before you even asked. Buddy.
Yeah, I think you know the answer to that one, man.
We are at the bottom of the barrel. And like the only thing that keeps us afloat is the mindset. I guess that's the word, or the mentality from upper management and the coaching staff that we are not in rebuild mode. We are ready to win now. We're trying to win now, and that mindset trickles into the fan base as well. Because it's nobody's fault. But if you don't acknowledge it from the top or from the coaching staff, that maybe we need to focus on younger players and developing these key guys to make sure that 2 years from now or a year from now that they're ready to go full speed and they're ready to go to become a part of this new culture or culture of a team, then maybe this things can be better. But no, we're always in a win now mode, so therefore our mindset is different. But no, we're truly at the bottom. We haven't really
I would
much.
agree with Jamal, and I would actually say that another thing that's kind of kept us from pretending we're with the dregs is that we have a couple of trophies from the 80s that we care about, and you look at the other drag teams like the Lions, the Raiders, the Cardinals, and those are some of the older teams in the dregs. They, even though they're old like us, they've never had that dynasty that we had. I mean, maybe you could say the Raiders with Madden, but they won, one championship in that time? That's it. The Bills, they had 4 years where they lost the championship. Like, a lot of the dregs teams that we're with, none have had that 10-year span of success like we had. So we're lucky in that respect. But no, we're in the dumps. We're a dumpster fire of a team that just got lucky for a short span.
In terms of PR, I think we are the dregs. I don't think any team in this league has worse PR than us. With the name issues.
We're 32 out of 32 on PR.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. With, raw talent and skill on the field, we're not quite the worst. But nobody is more hated than the Redskins, I think.
Oh, yeah.
See, the Redskins does this thing every year where they spray Febreze over the bad odor. Or they put like a car freshener in the trash can. So what they do is they confuse people. They're like, man, ain't nothing going on. We good. But lo and behold, once that stuff starts to expire, the smell, which is doing pretty quickly this year, you realize that you were deceived.
I mean, I'm just kind of scanning through the standings here so far, and I'm just looking at franchises. Definitely the Cardinals have been a drag. But they were in a Super Bowl. They have. The Lions have been one of the drags of the NFL. That having been said, they have best quarterback. they haven't won anything, but
Yeah.
they've had
And
reason to
they've
be.
had
They,
more
they
than a few
had an
years-
all-time great
a few
receiver
years
for
of
a long
success,
time,
too.
but they're a drag, right?
Sure.
And so then you've got Jacksonville. I would have said, except in the past couple of years, they've been good.
Meh.
The Bengals, maybe are down there. The Bills, who are 2-0, So I just know they're 2-0. Apparently so. Yeah, I'm looking at standings. Build the flow. Yeah, but
0-2.
this season aside, I mean, I think those are the ones, right? The
they win?
Browns have the
Oh,
Browns
shit.
have probably been the worst drag of the NFL, right?
Oh, you said who's 2-0?
Nobody can say the Browns aren't number 32.
Oh, yeah, yep. They 2-0. Beat the Giants.
But they have reason for hope now. I don't know. I don't mean to be such a downer about it, but I mean, we're like 30, ranked maybe 30, 31 on the scale, I think, just sort of as a general proposition, which is just awful. Yeah. So sorry about that. I didn't mean to bring the show down, but
That's true.
Probably.
Yeah, I would agree.
But season to season,
No, it's fair. That's coming
we're gonna
after
be in
7
there
wins last
mediocre
year.
and
It's
all of
important
that,
too. You're calling us
we
dregs
don't-
when we're not
usually up 2
that
or
bad,
14,
and yet we all know
kinda
it's true.
year after
The
year
truth
after
is,
year
we
after
true. We
year,
really
all
are the dregs.
chaos and all the national media laughs at us. For the most part. So
Sure.
anyway, back to the game. I don't know
Yeah.
what else to say about the defense. I thought like we said, the defensive line was horrible. The secondary, had its moments.
Oh,
At the end
yeah.
of the day, Ezekiel Elliott got
Absolutely.
his numbers. It went pretty much exactly how we thought. Which is sad to say.
Exactly.
Right.
Let's do some game balls and cut this one off then. We do, and you know what? I don't think there's going to be a whole lot of controversy on these game balls today. There wasn't much controversy last week either. I'm going for offense. Give it to the obvious guy. That's McLaurin for me. Didn't call him last week, so I feel better doing it this week.
Am I next?
And defense.
Yeah, I mean, I think McLaurin is the only answer on offense.
Yeah, let's give it to
I'm
Nicholson.
struggling to find.
Let's give it to Nicholson, the guy that comes.
I mean, I guess
comes
Sean, your Nicholson award is probably he got the interception
You're
because
next.
certainly nobody else really deserves anything. So I hate to copy you, Sean, but out of a lack of anyone else, I'd be kind of embarrassed to get a game ball for a game like this. On
That's the
defense,
one.
but I'll give it to Nicholson too. Sorry. You know what though? With as bad as the defensive line was today, I'm not giving any of them bums a game ball. Sorry.
You can give it to Payne. Payne kind of caused that interception by
Yeah, he did.
disrupting the. Yeah. Huh? That's fair.
Fair enough.
I'll go next. So I'll make mine quick because there's really no need to elaborate. Terry McLaurin on offense, once again showed that he's a tough receiver and a very good and underrated guy coming into the regular season. So Terry McLaurin on offense. Defensively, I'm going to go Monte Nicholson, not because of how he played on defense, but because he shows some skills as a return man. And that's the only reason why he gets the game ball. He has absolutely no reason for him playing defensively why he should get a game ball, and neither should the other 10 players. But he showed that he can, if the ball somehow ends up in his hands, he can get at least 10 to 20 yards. So therefore,
Yeah,
he
let's
gets
put
the
him in
game
on
ball.
punts and maybe see what he does there then.
Yeah, it is true.
All
Yeah,
right,
see
so
what he can do.
I agree with you guys on McLaurin. He's really the only guy in offense who did anything. I'm going to throw in a wrench, though, and say Kerrigan on defense.
Dexter.
He did
You're
get
talking
that
about
sack
Dexter
there.
Manley. Yeah.
So he's, 10
Yeah, I
away
mean, for those
from
of you who don't
the
know, the
team
NFL did
record
not
now.
count sacks.
So
Wow, is
for
that true?
Decades
Wow.
and
Something like
decades,
that.
and they just started
The,
doing
the
it.
team record, according to
Yeah, and
Rick
I
Snyder,
don't
is
know the exact
98
year, but it
because
was like,
who is it
Dexter's-
that actually has
yeah,
it?
like
The
Dexter's
first year
second or
wasn't
third year or
counted.
something in the league.
Dexter, yeah, it's Dexter. Thank you. I couldn't remember if it was Dexter or Charles Mann.
Right.
Yeah, an absurd amount of time that they didn't count it.
Probably will.
1970 something.
Am I the?
Yeah, so according to
One other point I've been thinking
our buddy
about.
Rick,
Why isn't
like
Steven
Dexter
Sims
has
returning
another
punts?
6 on
Can
the
somebody
total
help me?
that
I don't know
it
why
brings
Trey
it to
Quinn's
98
doing
for
it.
him.
I don't think
Wow.
Trey Quinn's awful at it.
If
But Sims is a
Kerrigan
guy
could
who's
possibly
explosive.
beat
First,
that
I think
in
he's
his
just,
career, so probably will.
Yeah, I mean,
Here
I think
or
it's
not,
kind
I
of
don't
a
know,
waste
but-
to have Sims back there. on
He
kickoffs,
needs 6 more.
when
Come on, of
75%
course he
of them
did.
aren't returnable anyway. Whatever the number is. Yeah. So, just a random thought.
Yeah, Quinn's fine. But Sim seems like a guy who could blow it up. Yeah.
I'm sure the Bears
Also,
defensive line
Quinn
is
should
just
be out there on first down
their-
every time.
yeah,
so
chopping their
why get him beat up one play before?
True. Fair enough.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Something to mull over then in this coming week as we prepare for, who is it this week? Chicago?
Yep, Chicago
Bears?
on Monday night.
Yep.
Bears on
The Bears.
Quaking in their boots?
Truth be told, we'll be 100%
Yes.
fine if they
Yep.
stop it by
Yeah.
halftime. Like if we can win the first half and they end it in the first half, I personally I'll be fine. You know, I could go to sleep,
I'd be okay with that.
drunk and happy. And you know,
Right.
I'll call it a win.
Yeah, amen to that.
Sorry about
Well, we
my-
got much more analysis then coming about that Bears game as we prepare this week. So, what is it? Gets posted on Thursday now. So Thursday we'll have our preview episode up for y'all, and then we'll
Yeah.
obviously be back for you guys after the game on Monday. So until then, check us out: hogstie.com, bigheadsmedia.com. We'll see you next time.
Hey everyone, I'm Kelly,
And I'm Brittany.
and we are the hosts of The Faves of Our Lives.
We're a fairly new podcast that focuses on everyone's favorite everythings.
Each season we talk about a different category, whether it be movies, music, books, etc.
This season, we are discussing your favorite TV shows. Shows like The Office,
Dexter,
Dawson's Creek.
Saved by the Bell, and much more.
You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, and many other podcast platforms.
Follow us on Twitter and Facebook at The Faves of Our L1 and let us know all about your faves. That's The Faves of Our L and the number 1.
We hope to become one of your faves soon.